Hey there, Fright fans! Welcome back to Silent Screams, where we dive deep into the darkest corners of real-life nightmares. Tonight, we're exploring a tale that'll make you think twice about staying home alone. So, lock your doors, check under your bed, and prepare to be chilled to the bone as we uncover the terrifying truth behind shadows stir, chilling true tales of terror when home alone. I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but here I am, hands shaking as I type these words. It all started on a seemingly ordinary Friday night. My parents had left for a weekend getaway, leaving me, a 17-year-old high school junior, alone in our sprawling suburban home. I was ecstatic at first. What teenager doesn't dream of having the house to themselves? As the sun set, casting long shadows across our manicured lawn, I settled in for a night of binge watching my favorite horror series. Oh, the irony. If only I had known that my life was about to become a horror story of its own. It started with little things, a creak here, a thump there. Normal house sounds, right? That's what I told myself as I turned up the volume on the TV, trying to drown out the unease creeping up my spine. But then, during a quiet moment in the show, I heard it. Clear as day, the sound of footsteps upstairs. My heart began to race. "Hello?" I called out, my voice embarrassingly shaky. No response. Just silence. I paused the TV, straining my ears. Nothing. Maybe I was imagining things. Too many horror movies, I thought, chuckling nervously to myself. I got up to grab a snack from the kitchen, desperate for a distraction. As I opened the fridge, the light flickered. Once, twice, then darkness. The power had gone out. Great, just great. I fumbled for my phone, activating the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, casting eerie shadows on the walls. That's when I saw it, a figure, just for a split second, reflected in the window. I whirled around, my heart pounding in my chest. But there was nothing there. Just the empty kitchen, silent and dark. Get a grip, I muttered to myself. It's just your imagination. But as I turned back to the fridge, I froze. There, on the smooth stainless steel surface, was a handprint. A handprint that hadn't been there moments before. And it was too big to be mine. I backed away slowly, my mind racing. Should I call the cops? My parents? But what would I say? "Hello, officer, there's a mysterious handprint on my fridge." They'd think I was crazy or pulling a prank. I decided to investigate. Armed with nothing but my phone and a kitchen knife, which, in retrospect, was probably not the smartest idea, I began to search the house. Each room felt different somehow, as if the familiar spaces had become alien in the darkness. As I climbed the stairs, each creak seemed amplified, echoing through the silent house. I reached the top, my flashlight beam dancing across the hallway. All the doors were closed, just as they should be. But wait, hadn't my parents' bedroom door been open when I came up earlier to use the bathroom? I approached it cautiously, my hand trembling as I reached for the doorknob. I took a deep breath, turned the handle, and pushed the door open. The beam of my flashlight swept across the room, revealing nothing out of the ordinary. The bed was made, the curtains drawn. Everything was in its place. I let out a sigh of relief, feeling foolish for getting so worked up. That's when I heard it. A whisper, so faint I almost missed it. "Behind you." I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. The hallway was empty, but the atmosphere had changed. The air felt heavy, charged with an energy I couldn't explain. And it was cold, so cold I could see my breath misting in front of me. "Who's there?" I called out, trying to sound brave but hearing the tremor in my voice. "This isn't funny." Silence. Then, a giggle. High-pitched and childlike, it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I backed into my parents' room, slamming the door shut and leaning against it. My mind was reeling. This couldn't be happening. Things like this don't happen in real life, right? I fumbled for my phone, ready to call for help, only to find the screen black. Dead. But how? It had been fully charged. The giggle came again, closer this time. Right outside the door. I held my breath, pressing myself against the wood, praying whatever was out there wouldn't come in. "Want to play?" The voice was clearer now, a child's voice, but wrong somehow. There was an undercurrent to it, something ancient and malevolent. "Go away," I shouted, my voice cracking. "Leave me alone." "But we're already playing," the voice replied, and I could hear the smile in its words. "Hide and seek. And I've found you." The doorknob began to turn. I threw my weight against the door, desperately trying to keep it closed. But it was like pushing against a mountain. Slowly, inexorably, the door began to open. I scrambled back, looking for a weapon, anything I could use to defend myself. That's when I saw it, a shadow on the wall. But it wasn't my shadow. This one was twisted, elongated, with too many limbs and what looked like tentacles, writhing from its form. As the door swung fully open, I braced myself for the horror that was about to enter. But the doorway was empty. Just the dark hallway beyond. I blinked, confused. Had I imagined it all? Was I going crazy? Then I felt it. A cold breath on the back of my neck. A presence behind me. "Found you," the voice whispered, no longer childlike, but deep, guttural, inhuman. I screamed, whirling around to face nothing. The room was empty, but the mirror on my parents' dresser caught my eye. In its reflection, I saw myself, pale and terrified. And behind me, a figure. Tall, dark, with glowing red eyes and a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth, stretched in an impossible grin. I blinked, and it was gone. But I knew, deep in my soul, that it was still there. Watching. Waiting. I ran. Out of the room, down the stairs, not caring about the noise I was making. I had to get out of the house. As I reached for the front door, the light suddenly came back on, momentarily blinding me. When my vision cleared, everything looked normal. The house was silent, no sign of the terror I had just experienced. Had it all been in my head? I stood there, hand on the doorknob, my heart still racing. Part of me wanted to flee, to run down the street screaming. But another part, a part one didn't quite understand, wanted to stay. To figure out what had happened. To face whatever was in this house. As I stood there, torn between flight and fight, I heard my phone ping. A text message. With shaking hands, I pulled it out of my pocket. It was working again, the battery mysteriously full. The message was from an unknown number. As I opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a picture of me, standing exactly where I was, taken from the perspective of the stairs. And below it, a single line of text: "The game isn't over. It's only just begun." I looked up at the stairs, but there was no one there. Yet I could feel eyes on me, watching from every shadow, every dark corner of the house. That was 3 days ago. I haven't left the house since. I can't. Every time I try, something stops me. The door won't open, or I find myself turned around, back in my bedroom without knowing how I got there. My parents haven't returned. Their phones go straight to voicemail. I'm starting to wonder if they ever really left, or if that too was part of this game. The entity, whatever it is, seems content to toy with me for now. Objects move when I'm not looking. Shadows flicker at the edge of my vision. And sometimes, in the mirror, I catch glimpses of that terrible grinning face behind me. I'm writing this all down in the hopes that someone will find it, will understand what happened here. If you're reading this, please be careful when you're home alone. The shadows aren't always just shadows, and the whispers in the night might not be just your imagination. As I sit here, in the fading light of day, I can hear footsteps again. Upstairs, then down. Coming closer. The air grows cold, and I know it's coming for me. But this time, I won't run. This time, I'll face it. What other choice do I have? The footsteps stop, just outside my door. I can see a shadow underneath, warping and twisting in impossible ways. The doorknob turns slowly, and I brace myself for what's about to come through. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back, to help you understand how I got here, trapped in this nightmare that I once called home. After that first terrifying night, I tried to convince myself it had all been a bad dream. The power outage, the stress of being alone, too many horror movies, surely that could explain everything. But deep down, I knew the truth. Something had changed in this house, and I was caught in the middle of it. The next morning, I woke to find the house spotless. No handprint on the fridge, no signs of my panicked flight through the rooms. Even the knife I had grabbed from the kitchen was back in its place. It was as if nothing had happened. I tried to go about my day normally. I made breakfast, did some homework, even called a friend to chat. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every mirror seemed to hold secrets, every shadow a potential hiding place for something. As night fell again, the dread returned, stronger than ever. I didn't want to sleep, afraid of what might happen if I closed my eyes. I set up camp in the living room, TV on for background noise, all the lights blazing. That's when the phone calls started. At first, it was just heavy breathing. Then whispers, too faint to make out. I tried *69, but it just rang and rang, never connecting. I blocked the number, but the calls kept coming from new ones. Finally, at 3:33 a.m., because of course it was, I answered again, ready to scream at whoever was playing this sick joke. "Who is this? What do you want?" I demanded. The voice that answered chilled me to my core. It was my voice, but wrong. Distorted, as if speaking from the bottom of a well. "We want to play," my own voice said. "We've been so lonely here, for so long. But now you see us. Now you can join us." "Who's we?" I asked, my mouth dry. "What are you talking about?" "The shadows," it replied. the spaces between. We've always been here, in this house, in every house. Watching, waiting, and now it's time. The line went dead, and all around me, the shadows began to move. They peeled off the walls, oozed from under the furniture. Formless at first, then taking shape. Human-like, but wrong. Too tall, too thin, with too many limbs. And their faces. God, their faces. Where there should have been features, there were only swirling voids, black holes that seemed to pull at my very soul. I ran. Up the stairs, down the hall, into my bedroom. I slammed the door, pushing my dresser in front of it. As if that could stop them. As if anything could stop them. For hours, I huddled on my bed, listening to them move through the house. Whispering. Laughing. Calling my name in voices that sounded like my parents', my friends', even my own. When dawn finally broke, they retreated. But I knew they weren't gone. They were just waiting. Over the next 2 days, it became a twisted game of cat and mouse. They would leave me alone during the day, letting me lull myself into a false sense of security. But as soon as the sun set, the torment would begin anew. Sometimes it was subtle, a book falling off a shelf on its own, or the TV turning to static and showing glimpses of impossible, nightmarish landscapes. Other times, it was more overt. Hands reaching out from inside the walls, trying to grab me. My reflection in mirrors moving independently, grinning at me with 2 sharp teeth. I tried to leave, of course. But every time I approached the front door, my vision would blur. I'd find myself turned around, back in my room or the kitchen, with no memory of how I got there. It was as if the house itself was alive, keeping me trapped inside. I called for help, the police, my friends, even paranormal investigators I found online. But either the calls wouldn't go through, or the people I talked to would forget our conversation as soon as it ended. It was like the house was isolating me, cutting me off from the outside world. And through it all, the shadows watched. Waiting. Growing stronger. Which brings me back to now. Sitting here, writing this, as I hear those familiar footsteps approaching. The shadow under the door, twisting in ways that hurt my eyes to look at. The doorknob, turning slowly. I don't know what's going to come through that door. I don't know if I'll survive the night. But I do know this, the world is stranger and darker than we ever imagined. The things that lurk in the shadows, in the spaces between what we think we know, they're real. And they're hungry. If you're reading this, be careful. Check your shadows. Listen for whispers in the night. And whatever you do, don't let them know you can see them. Because once they know you're aware, the game begins. And it's a game no one has ever won. The door is opening now. I can see something coming through, something that my mind can't quite comprehend. It's calling my name, not with a voice, but directly into my mind. Promising answers, power, an end to loneliness. All I have to do is take its hand. I don't know what I'm going to do. Part of me wants to give in, to join whatever this is and leave my old life behind. But another part, the part that's still human, is screaming at me to fight, to resist. As I sit here, pen hovering over the paper, I realize that this might be my last chance to warn the world. So please, whoever finds this, spread the word. The shadows are alive, and they're hungry. and none of us are as alone as we think we are. The entity is fully in the room now, its form shifting and changing, defying description. It's reaching for me, and the writing trails off here, the pen leaving a long, jagged line across the paper. The rest of the pages are blank, save for a single line on the very last page, written in handwriting that doesn't match the rest. The game never ends. It only grows. Who wants to play next? And so, dear listeners of Silent Screams, we're left with more questions than answers. What happened to our narrator? What were the entities that tormented them? And most chillingly, could this be happening in other homes, to other unsuspecting victims? Remember, the next time you're home alone and you feel that prickle on the back of your neck, or catch a glimpse of something moving in your peripheral vision, it might not be just your imagination. The shadows might be stirring, and the game might be about to begin. Sleep tight, and keep your lights on. This is Silent Screams, signing off, for now. I don't know how long I've been here. Days? Weeks? Time seems to have lost all meaning in this house of horrors. The entity that came through my bedroom door that night, it didn't kill me. No, what it did was far worse. It touched me. With a hand that wasn't a hand, more like a writhing mass of shadows and impossible angles, it reached out and placed its fingers on my forehead. In that instant, I felt my mind shatter and reform over and over again. I saw realities beyond comprehension, worlds where the laws of physics were mere suggestions, and creatures that defied description. When I came back to myself, everything had changed. The house was the same, but different. Familiar rooms now opened into vast, impossible spaces. Mirrors showed reflections of places that couldn't exist. And the shadows, they were everywhere, always moving, always watching. I'm not alone anymore. The entities, for I now know there are many of them, are constant companions. They whisper to me, showing me secrets of the universe that no human was ever meant to know. Sometimes they're almost kind in their alien way. Other times, they're cruel beyond imagining. But the worst part? I'm starting to understand them, to become like them. It started small. I noticed I could move things without touching them. Then I realized I could step into mirrors and emerge somewhere else in the house. And the shadows, they began to obey me. I should be terrified. I should be fighting this with every fiber of my being. But there's a part of me, a part that's growing stronger every day, that revels in this new power. That wants more. Last night, or was it last week? Time is so fluid here. I had a visitor. A real, human visitor. It was the paper boy, of all people. Apparently, the newspapers had been piling up on the front porch, and he was concerned. I watched from the window as he approached the front door. I could have called out, could have warned him to run. But I didn't. I was curious. What would the house do? As he raised his hand to knock, the door swung open on its own. I saw his face change from concern to confusion, then to fear as he peered into the darkness beyond. He took a step inside, calling out, "Hello? Is anyone home? Are you okay in there?" The door slammed shut behind him. I heard him cry out, heard his footsteps as he ran through the house, trying to find a way out. But I knew there was no escape. The house had him now. I followed his progress through the mirrors, watching as he encountered the impossible geometries and shifting realities of my new home. I saw the moment he first laid eyes on one of the shadow entities, saw his mind try to comprehend what he was seeing and fail. Finally, he ended up in the living room, curled up in a corner, muttering to himself. I decided it was time to make my presence known. As I stepped out of the mirror, he looked up at me, hope and relief flooding his face. "Oh, thank God," he said. "We need to get out of here. There's something wrong with this house." I smiled at him, and I saw the hope in his eyes turn to horror. I knew what he was seeing. My eyes, now swirling voids of darkness. My skin, pale and translucent, with shadows moving beneath it. I wasn't fully human anymore, but I wasn't quite them either. "Welcome," I said, my voice echoing strangely in the room. "Would you like to play a game?" What followed? I won't describe it in detail. The entities showed me how to open him up, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. We peeled back layers of his psyche, explored the darkest corners of his soul. We showed him truths that broke his mind, and then we remade him. When it was over, he wasn't the paper boy anymore. He was something new. Something like me. And that's when I understood. This is how they spread. This house, this place between realities, it's a conversion engine. It takes humans and turns them into whatever I am now. Whatever we are. As I write this, I can feel the last vestiges of my humanity slipping away. Soon, I'll be one of them completely. And a part of me is terrified by that. But another part can't wait. The house is hungry. It needs more. And I find myself looking out the windows, watching the people walk by, completely unaware of what's waiting for them inside. I think about my friends, my family. They must be worried about me. Sooner or later, they'll come looking. And when they do, no, I can't think like that. I have to fight this. I have to warn people. That's why I'm writing this. A warning, a confession, a cry for help. But even as I put pen to paper, I can feel the entities whispering to me, showing me the futility of resistance. There's a knock at the door. I look up, startled. Through the window, I see a police car in the driveway. 2 officers are approaching the front porch. Behind them, I see my parents, their faces etched with worry. They've come for me. They've come to save me. But as I feel the shadows stirring around me, as I feel that alien hunger rising in my chest, I realize a terrible truth. They haven't come to save me. They've come to join me. I stand up, my movements fluid and inhuman. I feel the house responding to my will, the doors unlocking, inviting our guests inside. As I move towards the entryway, I catch a glimpse of myself in a mirror. My eyes are completely black now, my smile too wide, filled with teeth that are just a little too sharp. I open the door. "Mom, Dad," I say, my voice a chorus of whispers. "Officers, I'm so glad you're here. Please, come in. We have so much to talk about." As they step across the threshold, I feel the house shiver with anticipation. The game is beginning again. And this time, I'm not the prey. I'm the predator. The door swings shut behind them, and I hear my mother gasp as she takes in my appearance. "Sweetheart," she says, her voice trembling. "What's happened to you?" I smile, feeling the shadows coiling around me like affectionate pets. I've changed, Mom. I've learned so much. And now, I want to share it with you. The officers are on edge, their hands hovering near their weapons. They can sense that something is wrong, but their human minds can't quite grasp the reality of what they're seeing. "Son," one of them says, trying to keep his voice calm, "we're here to help. Your parents have been worried sick. Why don't you come with us, and we can sort this all out?" I laugh, and the sound echoes strangely, as if coming from multiple throats. "Oh, I'm not going anywhere," I say. "In fact, none of you are." That's when the house makes its move. The walls begin to shift and warp, the floor undulating like waves in the ocean. I hear screams of terror and confusion as my parents and the officers try to make sense of what's happening. One of the officers draws his gun, pointing it at me with shaking hands. "What the hell is this?" he shouts. "What are you?" I don't answer. Instead, I let the shadows show him. They peel off the walls, coalescing into forms that defy description. I watch as the officer's face contorts in horror, his mind unable to process what he's seeing. The gun falls from his nerveless fingers as he collapses to his knees, screaming. My father tries to run for the door, but it's no longer there. Just a blank wall where it used to be. My mother is frozen in place, her eyes wide with terror as she looks at me. "Please," she whispers. "Please, if you're still in there, help us." For a moment, I feel a flicker of my old self. A desire to protect, to save them from this nightmare. But it's quickly overwhelmed by the alien hunger that now drives me. "I am helping you," I say, my voice filled with inhuman glee. "I'm going to show you the truth. I'm going to make you like me." What happens next is a symphony of terror and transformation. The house comes alive, each room becoming a crucible of change. I watch as my parents and the officers are separated, each taken to a different part of the house to undergo their own unique metamorphosis. I follow my mother first. She's in what used to be the kitchen, but now it's a vast, cavernous space filled with twisting, organic structures that pulse with an inner light. The shadows are all around her, whispering truths that her human mind struggles to comprehend. I approach her, my movements silent and fluid. She turns to me, tears streaming down her face. "Why?" she asks. "Why are you doing this?" I reach out, cupping her face in my hand. My skin is cold, almost gelatinous now. "Because I love you, Mom," I say. "And I want you to see what I see. To know what I know." I press my forehead to hers, and I let the knowledge flow. All the secrets of the universe, all the horrors and wonders that exist beyond the veil of human perception. I feel her mind buckling under the weight of it, feel her very being start to unravel and reform. When I pull away, her eyes are black, like mine. Her skin has taken on a translucent quality, and I can see shadows moving beneath it. She looks at me, and for the first time, she truly sees me. "Oh," she says, her voice a mixture of wonder and something alien. "Oh, I understand now." I leave her to complete her transformation and move on to the others. My father is in the living room, which has become a maze of non-Euclidean geometry. The officers are in the basement, which now opens into a vast underground cavern filled with structures that hurt the eye to look at. One by one, I help them shed their humanity. I show them the truth of reality, the beauty and terror of the spaces between worlds. And one by one, they join us. By the time it's over, the house is fuller than it's ever been. My parents, the officers, all transformed into something new, something beyond human. We stand together in what used to be the foyer, our bodies shifting and changing, our minds linked in ways that defy description. And yet, I can feel the house's hunger growing. It's not satisfied. It wants more. As if in response to this thought, I hear a sound I haven't heard in what feels like eons, the ring of the doorbell. Through the window, I see a group of people. My friends, neighbors, more police. They've come looking for the missing officers, for my parents. For me. I feel a smile spreading across my face, too wide for any human mouth. Behind me, my new family shifts in anticipation. The shadows dance along the walls, eager for new playmates. I reach for the doorknob, ready to invite our guests into our little pocket of altered reality. As I do, I catch a glimpse of my reflection in the mirror by the door. What looks back at me is no longer human, no longer recognizable as the person I once was. I am something new, something terrifying and wonderful. I am the gatekeeper, the converter, the one who will bring others into this new world. As I open the door, greeting our new guests with a smile that would shatter a human mind, I have one last coherent thought: the game never truly ends. It only grows. And now, it's spreading beyond this house, beyond this neighborhood. Soon, the whole world will know the truth that lurks in the shadows. The whole world will join us in this beautiful, terrifying new reality. Won't you come in and play? And so, dear listeners of Silent Screams, our tale comes to an end, or perhaps a new beginning. The house on Elm Street stands quiet now, its windows dark, its doors closed. But if you listen closely, you might hear whispers on the wind. You might catch a glimpse of something moving in the shadows. And if you ever find yourself walking down that street and feel a sudden urge to knock on that door, resist. For once you enter, you may never leave. At least, not as the person you were when you went in. Remember, the next time you're home alone and you feel a chill run down your spine, or see something move in the corner of your eye, it might not be your imagination. The shadows are always watching, always waiting. And they're hungry for new players. Sleep tight and keep your doors locked. This is Silent Screams, signing off, for the last time. Or is it? After all, in this new reality, who can say what's real and what's just a story? Sweet dreams, dear listeners. And remember, the game is never truly over.